Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone's doing fine. I've been MIA for the past few months simply because I've been out and about on the weekends and I've been out and about enjoying myself because I had an amazing summer and I had an amazing year. I hope you guys had a nice summer too. I was going to put on some eyeshadow so that I'll look extra cute for my resurgence, but then I'm just like, I don't really feel like it. So anyways, let's get right into it. So the Womansphere recently posed a question: Are black men's children worth giving birth? Are black men's male children worth giving birth to? And I just thought that was an interesting question. It would have been different if the question was, are black men worth having sex with? I think that would have been a better question because hypersexual behavior is a problem in Black America and a little more abstinence is definitely needed. I'm talking about the practice as well as the push for a little more abstinence is definitely needed. But the question asked was, are black men's children worth giving birth to? Because black men provide no benefits to black women. Black men are bombs. Black men are the biggest threat to black men. Black men are the biggest threat to black women. Black men are the biggest threat to black children. Black men don't provide and protect. They don't build. Black men this, that, and the third. And yet, despite all of that, we're still having sex with black men. We're still having sex with them without protection. And we're still having sex with them without protection. And we're still getting pregnant with their children. And so the Womansphere, even posing that question, pretty much confirms what the Manosphere has been saying the whole time, that black women make poor choices when it comes to men and reproduction. And I'm not saying that the Manosphere is 100% right about that, but that idea that they present, the Womansphere even posing that question, supports the Manosphere's argument that black women make poor choices when it comes to men and reproduction. Let's say that all black men are bums, all black men are dusties, all black men are losers, and yet black women will still get pregnant with their children. Now do you see why people blame the woman? Let's say all black men are bums and black women don't have the ability to choose better. So if all black men are bums, why do we still get pregnant with our kids? If black men are the problem and everybody knows that black men are the problem, why are we still getting pregnant with their children? And I'm not going to advocate for abortion. The way I feel about abortion is exactly the same way I feel about about people that bring children into the world that are not prepared to provide for them. I don't think it's okay to keep making babies that you either don't want or you're simply not prepared to provide for them. And the reason why I say that is simply because there's another party involved that can't defend themselves. If all black men are bums and black women don't have the ability to choose better, choosing better doesn't just exclusively mean choose better men. Choose better can also mean choose a better time to get pregnant. As in, wait until you're married or wait until you're in a nicer environment where you have access to a higher quality of men. If you're surrounded by bums, then that literally means you don't have any business getting pregnant. The Womansphere mentioned that black men's male children are growing up, and basically the children of Pookie, Ray Ray, and Tyrone are growing up and turning into Pookie, Ray Rays, and Tyrone that wreak havoc in Black America. I agree with that. And I'm glad that they mentioned that because the Manosphere actually says something very similar. The Manosphere says that single mothers are breeding criminals. So they both kind of made a similar comment, and that's not a bad thing because even though that's it's kind of offensive when you hear someone say it, it's a statistically accurate statement that most people in jail, most criminals, most black people who wreak havoc within Black America, most of them come from single mother homes. But of course, the difference in between the way the Manosphere said it and the way the Womansphere said it, the difference is that the Womansphere frames it in a way where it's black men's fault. The Manosphere frames it in a way where it's black women's fault. So basically, it's like they're both kind of pointing the finger at each other, as they should, because it takes two to tango. I'm glad they're pointing the finger at each other because it takes two to tango. I've mentioned in some of my previous YouTube videos that thug and hood rat behavior are widespread in Black America. Not all black men are thugs. Not all black women are hood rats. Are most black women hood rats? Is it the minority of black women that are hood rats? Are most black men thugs? Is it the minority of black men that are thugs? Which one is it? Who knows? But what I do know is that too many of us are like that. Those are the magic words. Too many of us are like that. We've got some behavioral problems in our community, and I feel that those behavioral problems are coming from cultural issues, and I feel that those cultural issues are coming from the way we structure our families. We have a habit of bringing children into broken, dysfunctional environments. It's called baby mama drama. It's called baby daddy drama. That's dysfunction. Usually people, they giggle at those terms or whatever, but that is indeed dysfunction. Being married before you have children does not guarantee that your children are going to grow up healthy and stable. Being unmarried before you have children does not guarantee that your children will grow up unstable. Nobody is making that argument. No one ever makes that argument. Being married does not guarantee that your children will grow up healthy and stable. It increases the likelihood that your children will grow up stable. Being unmarried does not guarantee that being unmarried before you have children does not guarantee that your children will grow up unstable. It increases the likelihood that they will grow up unstable. Okay, so should you bet your money on the option where you're more likely to win, or should you bet your money on the option where you're more likely to lose? The smart thing to do is to bet your money on the family structure where you and your children are more likely to win, and that's waiting until you're married before you have babies. So think of marriage and boyfriend and girlfriend situations as a spectrum. Marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. I didn't say marriage is permanent because the divorce rate is 50%. Marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations and also one-night stands are closer to the temporary end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations can be permanent, marriages can be temporary. That does not change the fact that marriages are closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations, as well as one-night stands, are closer to the temporary end of the spectrum. Babies are at the permanent end of the spectrum, which means babies and marriage are a better fit than babies and boyfriend and girlfriend situations or babies and one-night stands. Marriage is not the perfect option. It's not the solution to everything. It's the better option. It's the better option. Being a husband or a wife before you have children is the better option to being a baby mama or a baby daddy. Poverty exists in marriages. Domestic violence exists in marriages, child abuse exists in marriages, but poverty rates are lower in marriages than they are in single parent households and in domestic partnerships households. Domestic violence rates are lower in marriages than they are in domestic violence households. Child abuse rates are lower within marriages than they are within domestic partnership households. Marriage is not the perfect option, but it definitely beats domestic partnership in every single category. You can go and look that up yourself if you want to. You can go in and Google the data and the statistics on marriage versus domestic partnerships. I'm going to make a video about it later. But if you want to go and look that up yourself, you definitely should take the time to inform yourself. Marriage is not the perfect option. Being married before you have babies is not the perfect fix all or whatever you call it. It's the better option. Our culture seems to have this extreme aversion to being married, and it is kind of bizarre. We have this extreme aversion to being married, but we do not have this extreme aversion to being a baby mama or being a baby daddy, which is bizarre. Because marriages tend to be more stable than baby mama, baby daddy situations, and yet we are overwhelmingly choosing baby mama, baby daddy scenarios rather than choosing to be married. If you don't want to be married, that's perfectly okay, but I'm talking about marriage in relation to children. Marriage ain't for everybody, but people are literally making babies with anybody, which is incredible. You can't just marry anybody, but you can just make a baby with anybody. Marriage isn't for everybody, but people that don't need to be procreating are procreating. And it's just so crazy that we have this extreme aversion towards marriage, but we do not have that extreme aversion towards being a baby mama or being a baby daddy. And I think one of the reasons why is because we send the wrong message to each other within our community. There are women within our community that tell other women that you don't need to be married before you have a baby. You can do it by yourself. You can do it by yourself. But what I don't think people are getting, the women that do it by themselves and they're doing fine on their own, they're doing fine on their own because they don't have a choice. They took a pathway that they never should have took, and you can't expect anyone to swoop in and save you. I mean, you might be able to get some help, but you might not always have someone to swoop in and save you. You took a pathway that you never should have took, so you have no choice but to do it on your own. That doesn't mean that you go and advocate for something like that, even if you're not outwardly advocating for it, but you're making light of it. Women telling other women that you don't need to be married before you have babies, that's a bad message to send. That's a terrible message to send. And I noticed that a lot of the women that say that typically themselves are already baby mamas. I'm wondering if this is a misery loves company type of thing. Sometimes I hear the Manosphere mention that women, what do they say? That women are setting other women up for failure. And when I hear the Manosphere make comments like that, I mean, I don't agree with it or disagree with it. I don't think anything of it. But just a few days ago, it just kind of clicked in my head. Because I didn't even think of this until it was like Thursday morning when it kind of hit me that I've had conversations like this with my friends in my personal life, like completely separate from YouTube. I've had discussions like this with my friends. I have a friend who also works in the mental health field, and we're both into like personality disorders and behavior and psychology, and that's just based off of things that we've witnessed and based off of things that we've experienced. Both of us have come to the conclusion that women will try and compete with other women. And that's not something that a man told us. That's not something that we read online. So now we're just repeating it to pretend to sound intelligent. Based off of things that we've experienced and witnessed, we decided that women would try to compete with other women. And when you think of someone who is competitive, you think of someone who's aggressive. But someone who's competitive isn't always aggressive. Sometimes someone who's competing with you will present themselves as sweet and friendly, and they'll present themselves like they're your friend, like they're concerned for your well-being, and then they'll purposely give you bad advice. Sometimes people purposely give you bad advice to sabotage you out of jealousy. Sometimes people purposely give you bad advice to sabotage you because misery loves company. I also realize that I have another friend who we've also had this conversation that women will sometimes be dishonest with other women. Like telling women it's your body, it's your choice. Yes, it is your body and it is your choice. But one thing that I've noticed is that women don't tend to point out to other women choices have consequences. It is your body and it is your choice, and choices have consequences. For some reason, that second part of the sentence is always neglected. Somebody who really cares about you is going to warn you when you're doing something that you later regret. I can think of another example of when I feel women lie to other women. Out of shape women. Okay, I've been lifting weights for 8 years. And ever since moving to New York City, things involving cultural issues and social issues, things that I've never heard of, as well as things that I have heard of, but I only know a little bit about it. Since moving to New York City, cultural and social issues, number one, I've learned a lot. And number two, things that I've already known about have become magnified. So I've been lifting weights for 8 years. So fitness and body image and health and wellness and all those things are connected. And one thing that I've noticed is that women that are out of shape will tell other women that are out of shape, oh, you look fine the way you are, you look perfect. And I've always felt that women only say that to other women because as long as you stay out of shape, you make them look good. That's an opinion that I've always had. And I think that that's so incredible that there's this push to reject Western standards of beauty and reject like being fit or being in shape or whatever as a means of rejecting Western standards of beauty. But being in shape isn't only about aesthetics. Aesthetics is a side effect of being in shape. The human body is designed to run like a machine, and the machine malfunctions when it carries around excess body fat. So when you have excess body fat, you are more susceptible to a laundry list of diseases. Just because you're thin does not mean that you're healthy, but thin people are generally healthy. Being thin does not mean that you're overweight. Being a healthy size for your height, that doesn't mean that you're overweight. It is your body and it is your choice, and choices have consequences. And when you make poor decisions right now, you might have a catastrophe to clean up later, but you should make good decisions right now to avoid the catastrophe from happening later. So based off of things that I've witnessed and experienced, women will sometimes like lead other women right off of a cliff. So women telling other women you don't need to be married before you have babies, just because someone is giving you something, that doesn't mean that you have to receive it. Just because someone is giving you something, that doesn't mean that you have to receive it. That's a bad message to send. Someone can say that as much as they want to. So you can repeat as much as you want to. You don't need to be married before you have babies, but I just feel other men and women, this goes for men and women. You should be smart enough to know when not to listen to someone. And someone who tells you that, they can say that as much as they want to, but you should know not to receive that message. You don't have to argue with them. Just internally, you should know not to receive that message. I disagree that women should terminate black men's babies. I don't agree with that at all. And I think when the Womansphere said that, I think what they were saying is that something radical needs to take place. And I believe that that's what they were trying to say. Something radical needs to happen. And I agree. I do feel that something radical needs to happen. And so I'll just toss this in. So sex is like walking through a puddle of mud. And then abortion, as well as adoption, as well as raising a baby that you're unprepared to provide for, that's you trying to clean the mud off of your shoes. Abstinence is not walking through the puddle of mud in the first place. And I know that that is not a message that people want to hear, but like I just said, something radical needs to take place. So that's why I'm presenting an alternative option. You know, the new age, new fashion way of doing things is not working very well at all. You can bash the old fashioned way of doing things if the new fashion way is going great, but the new fashion way is going terribly. That's the irony. The new way of doing things is going horribly. So I had this revelation about a week ago. So as I mentioned, thug and hood rat behavior are widespread in Black America. I feel that these behaviors are coming from the culture that we've created. The culture that we've created is coming from the way we structure our families. And I didn't think of this until maybe about a week ago, that I have to take it back one more step, that the way we structure our families might be coming from the way we think. Like it might be coming from mentalities that we have. If you're new to my channel, I work for a company that offers cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the things that cognitive behavioral therapy teaches you, and one of the things that we talk about a lot at work, is that thinking influences your behavior. So changing your thinking will change your behavior. We have some mentalities that are destructive and harmful that need to be changed. And I think that that would help with changing our behaviors. Because, you know, the light bulb just kind of clicked in my head like a week ago, that we might have like a mentality, mindset issue that needs to be changed. So one thing that I think needs to change is the way we think about sex. Sex is nowadays, casual sex is a thing nowadays. It's not just in Black America, throughout all of American culture or whatever. All of American culture has become hypersexual. The only reason why I'm focusing on hypersexuality within Black America is because the consequences of hypersexuality within Black America are the most pervasive within our culture than it is within the other cultures. Sex is procreation. When you're using sex for procreation, it's procreation. When you're using sex for pleasure, it's procreation. That's why sex is called baby making. That's why you have to use contraceptives, because sex is procreation, and procreation happens to be pleasurable. So that's one thing that we need to keep in mind. Another thing that we need to keep in mind is every time you have sex with someone, there's a possibility that you're going to make another person with them. One time, Kevin Samuel said something that I thought was really intelligent. Well, he's made a few arguments that I thought were really good, but he says to women all the time, are you married to your baby's father? Why didn't you marry them? And then he says to women, so he's good enough to make a baby with, but not good enough to marry. And I think that that's an excellent question. If you can look at somebody and say, I would never marry you, then you should be able to look at them and say, I would never make a baby with you. And if you can look at someone and say, I would never marry you and I would never make a baby with you, you have to ask yourself the question, why am I sleeping with this person? I look down on them that much, so why am I sleeping with them? Kevin Samuel said that if we look at baby daddies like their husbands, then we would probably have less baby daddies, and I agree with that. It's not about the messenger, it's about the urgency of the message. It's about the urgency of the actual message. It's not about the messenger, it's about the urgency of the actual message. I'm just going to explain that again. Marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations are closer to the temporary end of the spectrum. I'm kind of losing my voice a little. I've been losing my voice lately. I've been losing my voice for the past 6 years, but lately it's been getting worse just because I take back-to-back phone calls all day. I'm going to go see a doctor soon. Marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations are closer to the temporary end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations can be long-term. Marriages can be temporary because the divorce rate is 50%. Even so, marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. You can get a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend tomorrow. You can't get a new husband or a new wife tomorrow. It's a much longer, more expensive process. That's why I say marriage is closer to the permanent end of the spectrum. Boyfriend and girlfriend situations are closer to the temporary end of the spectrum. Babies are at the permanent end of the spectrum. That means babies in marriage are a better fit than babies in boyfriend and girlfriend situations. Babies in marriage are a better fit than babies in one-night stands. And I know that accidents happen, but what did we talk about in my other video? I understand that accidents happen, but sex equals babies. Sex is procreation. Procreation. Pro means in favor of. So when you engage in the act that's in favor of creation, you can't be surprised when you create. Especially if you engaged in that act and you know you didn't use protection. And even when you do use protection, that's not going to always secure that you're going to be safe. When I was a kid, I would always hear people say that contraceptives don't always work. When I became an adult, I would hear people say that they do always work, but sometimes people don't use contraceptives correctly. And which one of those statements is true, it actually doesn't matter, because they both fall under the umbrella of accidents happen. So something that we need to keep in mind, every time you have sex with someone, there's a possibility that you're going to create a permanent situation with them. That permanent situation is called a baby. So we need to start asking ourselves questions. We need to start asking ourselves and asking each other questions. Can you see yourself being with that person permanently? Then are you sure you should be sleeping with them? We need to ask ourselves questions, and we need to start holding each other accountable. I do not feel that terminating black men's male babies is the best route to take, because you're terminating the life of a living being that can feel pain and can't defend him or herself. We need to stop making babies altogether and be responsible with our reproductive systems. Okay, so let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'm not really debating over, is it black men's fault? Is it black women's fault? Because like I already said, it takes two to tango. The worst example of black American culture is spreading their seed around the community, and the women in our culture are allowing the men to do this to them. If you're a baby daddy, you allowed a woman to turn you into a baby daddy. She turned you into a baby daddy with your permission. If you're a baby mama, it's because you allowed a man to turn you into a baby mama. He turned you into a baby mama with your permission. Okay, so baby mamas and baby daddies, you're not exactly a victim. The only time you might be a victim is if you were raped. If you were raped. Other than that, you can't claim victim status. It's just unfortunate to see people suffering at the result of something that could have easily been avoided. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about this whole issue with having kids outside of marriage. Let's try to keep the insults, I don't even want to say to a minimum. Let's try to refrain from the insults. If you want to express your opinion, just make sure you explain where you're coming from, because I'm not really here to argue. Like, I listen to people that I might not normally pay attention to or agree with, because sometimes if you cannot be so sensitive and not be triggered so easily, you might learn something that you may not have considered. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think about everything I talked about in this video. I really want to hear from black women, particularly black women that are from the inner city. Because I see a lot of men in the comment section of my last few videos, but I want to hear more from black women, particularly black women from the inner city. So let me know what you guys think. If you like my video, like and share. If you don't like my video, like and share. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the notifications bell so you can see every time I upload a new video. And you guys be blessed.